Good evening, everybody. This is the work session meeting, Mayor and Council, Monday, April 17th, 2017. Can I please ask everyone to rise for a moment of silent prayer and ask that we remember Helen Mendez, mother of Eric Schultz, our fire chief, who passed away last week. Councilman Bastille, please lead us to salute and pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by posting on bulletin board in Borough Hall, by email to the Ridgewood News, the Record, and by submission to all persons entitled to same, as provided by a law of a schedule including the date and time of this meeting. I'd like to remind all members of the public that we have 3 fire exits in our council chambers, 1 on each side of the dais and 1 in the rear. Roll call, please.
Vanessa. Here.
Here.
Present.
Here. Here. We have 3 proclamations on for this evening, and first for Arbor Day, we got a late email that no one from Shade Tree was able to come from the next council and have a letter to accept it on their
I will.
behalf.
And just want to say that Shade Tree did contact me about their absence tonight, and they do regret it.
Yes, I know it was something came up late, but
Yeah.
we understand. And since Arbor Day is coming up, I didn't want to wait till the May meeting, so that's what we're doing tonight. Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees. And whereas this holiday called Arbor Day was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska, whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world. And whereas trees can reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cut heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife. Whereas trees are a renewable resource giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products. Whereas trees in our city increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of the business areas, and beautify our community, and whereas trees, wherever they planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal. Now therefore, I, as Mayor of the Borough River Edge, do hereby proclaim April 28, 2017 as Arbor Day in the Borough River Edge, and I urge all citizens to celebrate Arbor Day and support the effort to protect our trees and woodlands. Further, I urge all citizens to plant trees to gladden the heart and promote the well-being of this and future generations. So, on behalf of the Mayor and Council, please accept this for the Shade Tree Commission. I know you'll thank them again on our behalf for all the good work and time and effort they put in to maintain our trees and to make the town look as nice as it does.
I will, Mayor. Thank you.
I'll get Mr. Grasso to accept the next 2. We have the first is in recognition of National Volunteer Week. Whereas the residents of River Edge live in a community that inspires, equips, and mobilizes people to take action that changes lives for the better, and whereas our dedicated volunteers connect with local community services through dozens of community service organizations, and whereas individuals and communities are at the center of social change, discovering their power to make a difference, and whereas during this week all over the nation, service projects will be performed and volunteers recognized for their commitment to service, and whereas the giving of oneself in service to another empowers the giver and the recipient, and whereas experience teaches us that government by itself cannot solve all our nation's social problems, and whereas our country's volunteer force of over 63 million is a great treasure, and whereas volunteers are vital to our future as a caring and productive nation. Now therefore, I, as Mayor of River Edge, hereby proclaim April 23rd to 29th, 2017 as National Volunteer Week, and urge my fellow citizens to volunteer in their respective communities. By volunteering and recognizing those who serve, we can replace disconnection with understanding and compassion. And we have Mr. Grasso who can accept. Mr. Grasso serves on our planning board. He's on the Mayor Business Advisory Committee. He's always lending a hand to different events, so we're very pleased that you can accept it here tonight.
Okay, thank you, Mayor.
And also, we're going to recognize National Small Business Week. Whereas America's progress has been driven by pioneers who think big, take risks, and work hard, And whereas from the storefront shops that anchor Main Street to the high-tech startups that keep America on the cutting edge, small businesses are the backbone of our economy and the cornerstone of our nation's promise. And where small business owners and Main Street businesses have energy and a passion for what they do. Whereas when we support small business, jobs are created and local communities preserve their unique culture. And whereas because this country's 28 million small businesses create nearly 2 out of 3 jobs in our economy, we cannot resolve ourselves to create jobs and spur economic growth in America without discussing ways to support our entrepreneurs. And whereas the President of the United States has proclaimed National Small Business Week every year since 1963 to highlight the programs and services available to entrepreneurs through the U.S. Small Business Administration and other government agencies. And whereas the Borough of River Edge supports and joins in this national effort to help America's small businesses do what they do best, grow their business, create jobs, and ensure that our communities remain as vibrant tomorrow as they are today. Now therefore be it resolved that I, as the Mayor of Borough River Edge, in recognition thereof, do hereby proclaim April 30th to May 6th, 2017 as National Small Business Week. Mr. Grasso, please accept that on our behalf. Thank you also for all your help with the business community. And you can,
Okay.
thank you. Okay. Borough Administrator Toppis, Allen, check the training status report.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm happy to report that the Mayor and Council completed the JIF training. That means that we should see a premium reduction of $2,000 for your efforts, and you have my appreciation for taking the training and the time to do that.
Okay, update on stormwater training.
Stormwater, I believe we have one more to do, one more elected official to get that accomplished. We have some time, there's no deadline for that. It is part of our checklist on the annual report for the Department of Environmental Protection, so that's why it's essential that the elected officials also take the training as well. So thank you for your efforts on that. I'm sure we'll complete that in the very near future.
Tax bill stuffer?
And if I may, I'd like the Finance Chair to address that. He's provided a first draft for everybody to look at.
Yeah, you have the latest draft in front of you. Some of the numbers I think need to be changed, particularly in the second paragraph. The increase in the tax levy, I think it's 1.4. Yeah, so that just has to get changed. Beyond that, I tried to put together something that was a little bit more informative than usual and gave a decent chart. You can see sometimes it was a little difficult with the open space. I tried to do it as a pie chart, but you couldn't see it at all on the pie chart or the and it was even hard with the library as well, and Bergen County. It got very, very small.
This is the percentage scale on the side, so
Yeah.
so maybe that should be 0 to 100, and then maybe you can just put a flag or something on them showing the percentage.
I could try, just it starts to get tight with space. That's
Why
why.
just put like a label on it, this is, this would be 68%, whatever.
All right, I can work with the program and try and do that.
Yeah, because I know we're gonna get calls saying open space didn't show up, or it's a friend store.
Well, I did put a carrot
Yeah.
there which says what it was, so that you could actually see it. I put that next to it just to reference it, because it is only 0.4% of the overall tax bill, so that doesn't show up very,
No.
very well. And then in grayscale, doing a pie chart, when you had all the it just doesn't show up well, because I know this is going to go in black and white. It's not going to be color, so that makes it, also a little bit more difficult doing like a pie chart, which would show the percentages. But again, it got really small, and just grayscale doesn't work, so that's why I went with a chart like this. So.
And is just the formatting thing, we got the rest of the citizens cut off on the bottom.
I don't know. It's on mine, so
Oh.
yeah. But I can move that up, that's not a problem. I may just have hit it when I
Yeah, no,
emailed it, so, but it's there,
okay.
so.
I have nothing else unless any other member has a,
No, those are my suggestions too.
Not a problem, I can do.
My only comment, I think you've done a great job, and thank you for doing this, is whether or not we want to stress that this is a sustainable and stable budget. I think that's language that's helpful for people to understand that year over year, we're providing a very stable, sustainable budget, and an increase about, if they're getting value for their dollar, but we're not going $200 last year and $50 this year and can expect $300 next year. We've worked really, really hard to make it a sustainable and stable budget year over year.
I could
And,
put in
I
some
think
language
those
to that
words
effect.
are meaningful to people when they're looking at their own personal finances as well.
I think, the next few years, as the surplus and cash reserves continue to grow, I think we need to be in a better position, so, and it's hard to articulate that, but I think that's a good suggestion. And it's, it wasn't 0.07%, it was 0.7%.
0.7%, okay.
Anything else? No, we need a motion now, or-
Yeah, for conceptual approval, subject to the numbers and some of the changes that were suggested tonight.
Mr. Chairman, you want to make that motion?
I'll make that motion. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you, Mayor.
Skip the discussion items, let's just do quickly the work session consent agenda.
So Mayor, I'd like to move a new hire of Kyle Joaquin. Kyle comes to us with 4 years of experience this is a recommendation from the Personnel Subcommittee, of which I'm a member, as well as I am the liaison for the DPW. Kyle comes to us from Waldwood Public Works, where he's had 4 years of experience, including recycling, driving dump trucks, landscaping, snow plowing. Kyle also has a Class B commercial's driver's license with tanker and air brake permit. And he comes highly recommended by our Superintendent of Public Works, John Lynch, and unanimous motion from the Personnel Subcommittee. And so I move the hiring of Kyle Joaquin. As soon as he gives his 2 weeks' notice, he will become a full-time employee of the borough.
I'll second.
Any discussion, questions?
We'll list that public action for the May 1st meeting, Mayor. Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Very good. And then, Mr. Financial, we'll just take care of paying the bills right now. We move resolution 17-150.
Whereas vouchers for the payment of goods and services rendered to the Borough of River Edge have been received, and whereas each bill has been checked by the receiving department, approved by the Chief Financial Officer and Borough Clerk, and reviewed by the 3 members of the Finance Committee, now therefore be it resolved that bills as listed now be confirmed for payment from the appropriate funds as follows. Current account, $449,435.84. Capital account, $7,732.50. Recreation account, $10,403.41. Animal welfare account, $64.80. Open space account, $78,842.10. Trust other account, $1,600. So moved.
Your second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Discussion. Item 1, zoning planning board.
Mayor, if I may, we just listed this because I know there was an amendment that we're going to make on the title of the ordinance, but I just wanted the council to have the opportunity, if there are any other changes or, points to be made on the ordinance itself, that you have the opportunity. I know the ordinance has been distributed, and we've had it on, but this would be the last opportunity before we actually put it up for adoption.
Mayor, if I may add, there's not much, the ordinance is written pursuant to the statute of merging the board, so there's not much wiggle room that you can actually, with the language of the ordinance, because it's tailored to the ordinance that dictates the merging of the boards.
And I keep going away from that word merge. It's not merging. Under land use law, it's one of the powers of the planning board. And under 4055 D25, 16B, 16C. It says, if a municipality having a population of 15,000 or less, a 9-member planning board, if so provided by ordinance, shall exercise to the same extent and subject to the same restrictions all the powers of the Board of Adjustment. But the Class 1 and the Class 3 members, which is the mayor and the council representative, shall not participate in the consideration of applications for development which involve relief pursuant to subsection D. Those are the D variances. Use, density, height over 10%. So, that's what the statute,
Yeah,
so it's pretty straightforward.
it is true.
Could we just, for the sake of the record and for my sake too, how is the process of the current members of the zoning board, when will they no longer, if we approve it at our next official meeting, when would they no longer have a function? And if I understand, and I may be wrong about this, if they've done the initial approval, don't they have to be part of the second? If something comes before the zoning board, they approve it, but then it has to come back for notification?
They have to memorialize their decision.
Yes, and how does that work as we
Yeah, I think
transition?
we'll work with Mr. Sarlo and the planning board attorney if the ordinance is approved. I would assume there would be a transition phase, whatever applications that they're presently hearing or hearing will continue until they are completed. And
So their role as a zoning board would continue at least for those pending applications?
Would this require the planning board to reorganize before next year?
No,
They would retain the same
it's gonna,
positions and what have
it
you?
stays the same. The ordinance does allow us to add 2 additional alternates. I'm not inclined to appoint at this time. We already have 9 members and 2 alternates. You can't even get them in the room. You know, I don't believe 4 alternates are required. We had 4 on the zoning board, and I think that proved to be a benefit because we had a lot of members who didn't come. So the authors actually played an active role on the zoning board. But very rarely, and Mr. Cross will correct me, generally we have a quorum on the planning board, and most of the time the alternates do not vote because we have a full board. Anyone else? Alan wrote a consultant to conduct a telephone audit. You want to talk about it? You want me to-
A little bit. I'll give you a few facts on this. We have hired them in the past from, I think they looked at our bills from 2008 to 2013, and we paid about $6,700 to them, and the credit or the savings to us, as best we could calculate, were about $10,000 to us. We had 2 issues going back then. One was how to make the award to them, whether it was an EUS or whether we eventually went through the Pascack Valley Co-op, but that's no longer available. It's my understanding Fort Lee has done it through quotes, and that would be acceptable if we went out and solicited quotes.
It was actually RFPs, not necessarily quotes. So you're not quoting on a dollar, but you're giving a service and they're giving you the criteria.
Well, we would be guided by the borough attorney's, advice on this, and I know in the past he also offered advice on a prepayment discount and things like that. So, but we, if you're interested in this consultant, then we would work with the borough attorney to investigate it and issue an RFP, and go ahead and have them come in and make an audit of our telephone service.
Yes, I know,
And rates.
we've been successful in getting savings from them. Fort Lee has gotten tremendous savings through their efforts also. The only difference I see in their contract, they're now asking for us to pay them 3 years of savings. I think that should be just 1 year. So we have to see if they're amenable for that.
So if the council's interested in having a telephone audit for, any years that
And
we
just
have
so
open, we
there's
can,
there's no upfront fee. you don't pay them unless you can find your savings, and even then, if you don't believe the savings they found are sustainable or appreciable, you don't even have to accept the recommendation, and they don't get anything. So there's really no downside as far as I can see. I'll leave it to the attorneys to look at the fine details of the contract, but I don't think so.
They get 40% of any credits they get back and 40% of any monthly reduction that you see because of their challenging the certain rates. That's the basis of payment.
When you say telephone bill, is it all telecom services, internet? Will they recommend providers or different services?
No, they're not there to switch your service or anything. They're looking at the service that you currently have and making sure that you have the lowest rates and the most appropriate rates. Sometimes there's, billing errors on the part of the utility companies. So that's what they're checking. They're auditors. They're not consultants to recommend a different service.
On the 40% on the monthly, is that every month, or is that just the initial?
No, that's why I said for a year, they project what the savings are, and then they want you to pay them that difference for initially 3 years. But,
Yeah, usually
but I
3
believe we'll get 60%. I think it says the borough shall pay them 40%.
Right, yeah, we get 60,
We
they
get
get
60,
40.
so they get 40.
Yeah. If somebody wants to move that, then we'll begin the process of investigating how to get it out to our...
So moved.
Second.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We have no reports this evening. Nothing for information, Alan?
No, I don't
Unfinished business, I did try to set up a meeting with the other Mr. Sarlo. He was away last week, so Al and Vito, you can maybe send me some dates and times. They're actually, I tried to get something together for this evening, but I wasn't able to get touch with Al and get it coordinated, so,
April, the week of April 25th, I'm open.
Okay.
Not the 24th, but the 25th on.
I don't go anywhere or do anything.
Right.
Generally around.
So we'll meet with them. Initially, they'll review their scope and lay out
Unless they have softball.
any other old business.
I'll introduce my request under old business. I would like to have a motion approved to bring back the police organizational chart ordinance the way it was originally proposed some 3 months ago, where there is no captain and there is an additional sergeant added to the ranks, for lack of better words. And I need to see this thing moving, and I need to see this thing moving in a very constructive way. There seems to me that there is some dissent among the ranks, but I'd rather keep that their problem and not making it mine. I am a council person who has to look after the best interest of the town, and that includes also the police department, of course. So, first things first, I make a motion that we bring back the ordinance as originally stated, and to have it for first reading in our May 1st meeting, I believe.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Discussion.
Well, it's not as originally stated, it's eliminating that lieutenant, that
Oh,
third
okay.
lieutenant.
I'm sorry,
It's gonna be a
then,
new
not
ordinance,
recollected.
correct? Yeah, it's gonna be a brand new ordinance.
It's going to be a brand new
Because
ordinance.
you want to be able to bring, I don't believe you were here for the vote on it.
No, I was not.
So you would not be able to bring back
I see.
resurrectly
So
the
that's
old
my error.
ordinance, but you're making modifications to it. So
Correct.
you want to introduce a new ordinance to the table board.
Correct. No captain and added sergeant.
We have a
And the difference is there's no lieutenant as it was. So you want to eliminate the captain and add a sergeant position.
Correct.
That's
Yes.
on the table.
I'm sorry if I
Yep.
Put
Just
it
wanted to
on.
clarify for everybody.
A motion to introduce a new ordinance, eliminating captain position, adding, additional sergeant position.
Yes.
Moved and seconded.
I'm just restating because it's more clear.
Yeah, we have to clarify it.
Motion and
Second.
second. Any more discussion? Roll call, please, Madam Clerk.
Yes.
Councilman Barlow?
Yes.
Councilwoman Deschutes? Yes. Councilman Canino?
Yes.
Councilwoman Davis? Abstain. And Councilman Cavalera?
No.
It should be listed for first reading on the May meeting.
Okay.
Is there any other unfinished business? Any new business? Seeing
Sorry,
none?
Mr. Mayor, did we cover this sidewalk and curb responsibility? I'm not sure
No,
what
that's
that is.
really just a discussion of ongoing, status.
Okay.
Um,
I just wasn't sure what that was.
yeah, no, in fact, you know, if it was up to me, I would just take all these bullet items down, because that was a request from a former council person.
Yeah, it's a memo that I drafted 2 years ago on it, and it just kind of hasn't gone anywhere, and they asked to be listed on old business.
I'll make a motion to remove the sidewalk and curb responsibility from unfinished business.
I think if I could Grove Street off also at this point.
What's that?
Grove Street parking lot, we're not doing Grove Street parking lot.
Send you the memo anyway. It's gonna-
It keeps showing
It's
up.
fine.
I'd amend my prior motion to include Grove Street.
Okay. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No more open, no motion open to the public.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Chief, Mr. Grasso, any comments? Questions? We have an hour and a half to kill.
I'm going home.
Yes, come on. Yeah, come on.
No
And
hot
I'm gonna go
dogs.
put their shorts on.
Popcorn.
As far as the removal of Grove Street, I think at this point, the parking spaces, I think there are 14 that are there, with those last 2 that were added, have been a huge improvement, because prior to those 14 spaces that were put there in the last couple of years, all the businesses used to park on Kennecott Road, and no matter what time of day you went, there were no available parking spaces on Kennecott Road. So that did alleviate the problem. I do have a concern now that this was proceeds removed off the old business. There is one vacant storefront, which is adjacent to the Big Rose Pizza Kitchen. Depending on what business goes in there, if a business goes in there that has a lot of employees, especially, I mean, it's unlikely it'll be a hair salon, because there already is a hair salon there, but it's another type of business that has a lot of employees. It could be 4 or 5 employees, and they park on Kennecott Road. It's going to make it very difficult for the other businesses on the strip to survive, because there's just going to be cars that are dead there. And it seems like even though there is 2-hour parking, from my past experience here and in other towns, people that are employees almost like try and game the system. If there's a 2-hour parking limit, the law enforcement will go and mark the tile, chalk line on the tire of the street. All the employees will go out and they'll move the car back a 1.5 feet, so the lines don't line up anymore, sort of game the system. So my concern is when that store is rented, if it's a store that has a lot of employees and they start parking on Kennecott Road because there aren't any available spaces on Grove Street, it's going to really make it difficult for that entire strip from Lincoln to Washington to survive.
I would think that, depending on the mechanism at which that space gets filled, that if it comes before one of the boards, that certainly would be something we would look at. You know, that from the planning board, parking would be a concern. If it goes to the building department, they're subject to the same requirements. The issue becomes is that, you know, it's not a big space, so to meet the statutory requirement for parking is probably not a high threshold. But it's, you know, the ordinance doesn't discriminate based on the type of use, meaning that one retail use from another does not require or doesn't generate the parking standards. The only time you get a difference is, say, between a typical retail space or commercial space versus, say, a restaurant, which may have employees plus tables or some formula like that. So it's something that I think it's still a concern up and down the whole Kennecott corridor. And I think the chief's here, we do need better enforcement. I've been saying for 3 years now, I don't know why we can't get better signage on that little strip there, with the 6 spaces that are there.
Yeah, the signs.
Because it's confusing, and it's still confusing, and, you know, I think if we ever do get, excuse me, Pinnacomack repaved, I did ask the county stripe spaces along that curb front, because to me, stripe spaces make it easier for people to know where to park, particularly on somewhere like Pinnacomack. And just because it comes off as an unfinished list item doesn't mean that it's something that goes away. You know, there's always going to be something to.
It's just a concern that because that space, there's a lot of, I mean, whatever the number are in the zoning ordinance, there's a list of very odd businesses that are permitted uses.
Yes,
So one of those, if somebody wanted to open up a business that's a permitted use in the zoning code, they wouldn't have to appear in front of any board. They could just go to the
Correct.
building department, as long as they have.
But there's also an occupancy, but there's also certain occupancy loads that they can
Right.
put in space too, so they can't put, you know, a temper pool with 50 people in there, you know, it's just not, you know, it shouldn't permit it. We would hope that, you know, between the zoning officer and code enforcement and the fire official, that they make sure that the occupancy matches the physical space, and that it adheres to all our site plan criteria.
Right.
Also,
We'd like to keep
I also think the problem with that particular property is that there are probably 6 or 8 spaces behind the building, which apparently are never allowed to be used for employees or patrons.
I see the police mark right there, I see.
I don't know or not, but, you know, there's an issue about how much on-site parking you have also, so that's something that the landlord has to be cognizant of, as you are, when you lease space to your building, because you don't have on-site parking. So I think, you know, they need to be cognizant of what they can offer potential tenants also.
Yeah, that's good for tenants, I mean, I'm not convinced that area in the back would be ideal for patrons, because most people would be sort of unnerved to go down there and steep in.
They may, but that's,
turn around and get
but
up.
that's not, with all due respect, that's not the borough's fault, and that's
Right.
not the borough's concern. I mean, you know, people can upgrade their properties to make them amenable to business also, and it's not always incumbent upon the borough to do these things.
No,
So-
I wouldn't expect the borough.
Mayor, just to add a few things, last time I was down at Grove Street with Superintendent Lynch, I asked him, not holding accountable, but what it would take to open up access from Lincoln, thank you, from Lincoln, and he thought that he could pave it, stripe it, and have access, one-way access, with as many as 5 new parking spaces for a reasonable amount of money, around 10,000 or thereabouts. Of course, we're not going to hold him to that. But, so I think if there was a need, right now there doesn't appear to be a need, the borough could respond. But until there is a need, there doesn't seem to be good reason to spend that money. But if we then, and then it would be one way in, one way out, and that would, that's something we
Yeah, that sounds.
perhaps could do if a need presented.
Sounds good.
We have a traffic and safety meeting coming up in the next, I think, 2 weeks. And one issue came up from the owner of Florist, and something I asked the chief to look into is whether or not that area might be open to 1-hour parking on Pinnacomack, which I think would eliminate employees parking in front of the stores if it's enforced. And for most of the businesses, I think, that are there, 1 hour is, sorry, I just shot Councilwoman Gospi. 1 hour parking would be,
Not a straw.
That'll teach you.
Keep an eye out with that, you know.
1 hour parking would be
I got a
sufficient.
lot of lint out of it.
1 hour parking would be sufficient for the businesses that are there.
Is that something we can do, or is that county road, so the
No,
county has to do?
we can regulate parking on this
Oh,
one.
that sounds like a great idea.
I mean, you know, between 9 and 5, which I think would,
The chief wants to
Yeah.
accommodate.
Just to want to first clarify the signage you're talking about, because we're constantly updating signs that become illegible in service or paving. So
I just think it's not clear. When you read those signs, it's the wording, it says resident park, right? It's very.
It says River Edge
River-
residents, so
Yeah,
patrons from out of town
it
who
should just say
live in that parking lot.
shoppers parking, or something, because it's very unclear. People either think those spaces belong to one or other of those buildings, they don't know if they can park there.
You're talking about
Those center 5 spaces that are the boroughs, and they should be striped and delineated as such that they're ours. I believe on the liquor store side, that's on your side, right? That's your property, that's fine, we can demarcate that, but where the borough spaces are, it should be clear that those are for patrons of any businesses in the area.
we can come up with different wording as long as it's something that's incumbent on wording that might.
No, I'm not, I just, it needs to be made clearer that people are able to park there.
We'll have a suggestion and then.
We've also, I've been approached by Dave Bradley, who's the president of the chamber, Riverdale Chamber. This is an issue that's coming up again, so I told him I'll meet with them again also to look at some global issues regarding, Riverdale and Oradell. River Edge and Oradell, they have some similar concerns, so, and you're part of those groups either, so I'm sure you'll be invited to those meetings, so.
One other point, as far as the enforcement goes, that's a standard detail every day check. Unfortunately, Mr. Grasso is absolutely correct that we do mark the tires when we come back and check on them, because once the vehicle is moved, unless you're actually going to stake it out and watch the vehicle, it's arguable even if they get out and move the vehicle or foot and then move it back again, we park the vehicle.
But I think if that's actually recorded as such, then you can certainly go into the businesses and say, this is not.
It's not the intent.
It's not the intent.
Well,
Yeah.
No, that's been discussed with all.
And I think that goes to the mayor's point, if the parking spaces are delineated,
Mhm.
then that kind of eliminates, you're within the confines of the space. So,
Yeah, that might be beneficial.
We can't delineate the spaces on our own?
We could.
Why don't we? Why don't we ask John to do that?
Or do we need Costa to?
No, they just need to be measured out. And I would have Costa get in touch with the county engineer's office to make sure that they have no concerns, but as long as we adhere to all the criteria about distances from the intersection and driveways and such.
John on Timberline can order that way after one of these basically.
Like I said, that's why I hope when we finally get repaid, we'll be able to do that.
Yeah, but we don't know when they're gonna get repaid.
No, we don't.
So why don't we just do that?
Well, because we'd have to John could paint them. We don't need to
Yeah,
distract
just
him.
get John to
So,
paint them.
I think if he wants to paint the spaces, something can be painted.
Do we need a motion for that?
Also move.
Yeah.
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
And we'll just ask John, to do it in consultation with the county and.
Hold on one second. Where we have to delineate, I think, on a map where we're specifically talking about, right?
From and to,
Yeah.
and also, are you charging Costa to get in touch with county engineering to?
Well, I would let John take the lead, see what he needs to do, and if he feels he needs Mr. Costa, then we'll.
You want to pull it on Google Maps?
Yeah, I'm pulling it up now.
This is why we need TV here.
So,
Arguing for that.
we're talking, from Lincoln to Washington Avenue? Or do we wanna go further?
I would start there, Tom, and then we.
I think so.
We'll see.
So I
I envision it going all the way, further up eventually, but at this point, this is where we seem to have the biggest issue, so we should try it and see how it works.
Okay, so that, let's just amend that, motion, to Lincoln to Washington Avenue on the east side of the road.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much.
Democracy.
Anybody else? Sir, do you want to make a comment, have a question? No? Okay. We can all come back if we have. Anybody, if any, with no new business, have a motion now to close the public, to the public? And motion to adjourn. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Adjourned.
Can you give us the elevator, please?